Hey, welcome back. Today I am doing some much needed to-do list items in my garden. We had a little taste of snow, nothing stuck, but yeah, the flakes came from the clouds, and that made me think I've got to get my gears in order and get some of these things done. So on my list today, I've got to dig up my dahlias. I've got to cover some of my vulnerable plants with burlap. Rhododendrons and azaleas get nibbled in the winter months by deer in our area. They're less picky. They typically wouldn't bother those shrubs in the growing season, but in the winter they get a little bit less picky and more needy, so they do tend to nibble those shrubs. So I will be covering it with burlap. I'm going to take some of the maple leaves that have dropped and mulch them up on my beds in my flower farm, just to add that good nutrients to the soil in the winter, for it to break down in the winter months. I'm going to spread some seeds. I bought some wildflower seed mixes that most of them need that cold stratification process, so now is the time to sprinkle those wildflower seeds. And just a little note to make sure that you're checking for invasive species. Quite often in our area, most wildflower seed packets include baby's breath, which is invasive in our area. So I always make sure that that's not included in my mix that I'm purchasing. So I'm going to spread those seeds. I'm going to also bring in some of my tender annuals that don't like our cool winters. I might bring in some geraniums, some Dusty Miller, maybe some Dracaena, that spiky plant that people use in containers. I'm going to bring those in. Not sure about my canna lilies. They might not be worth saving. I didn't really enjoy them as much as I thought this year. And then lastly, I'm going to collect seeds. So I have some containers and a Sharpie. I'm going to collect some seeds. I'm not sure if it's too late. We did get a little bit of moisture, so I'm hoping that won't ruin the germination for these seeds. But I'm hoping if I have them on some trays and dry them out, I can save some seeds for my next growing year. So I will take you along, and we will check off these items together. All right, so here are my dahlia beds. I have 3 of these raised planter beds that I added this year earlier in the spring. They've done so great for my dahlias. Really happy I did that. Actually, having the soil level elevated warmed them up, and I got blooms a little bit earlier than I would have if they were in the ground. So definitely loved that. But you can see a fail behind me. I bought some cheap Amazon arches here, and they just did not do well. I grew mini pumpkins on here, but it was still too much weight, and they were just very, very unsteady, and after a windstorm they came down. So I think I'm going to continue growing my honeysuckle on a similar sort of arbor, but not these ones, and I might choose to do my pumpkins somewhere else. It was a dream I had to grow pumpkins on this area, but it just didn't work out that way. Anyway, so I'm going to clean up the arbors, clean up the dahlias, dig them up, store them in here. These were here when we moved in, and I've used them for harvesting apples and pears and drying out my dahlia tubers. So that's what we are going to be doing today. All right, I'll show you what I typically do for my dahlias, and then so using this pitchfork, it really enables me to get the tuber without sort of damaging the actual tuber. So dig it up. This one is sort of a sad example. I'm going to remove the old stalk. I'm not going to be separating it yet. I'll be doing that at another time. But there we are. That's the tuber. All right, they are cleaned up, and I just noticed we have some company. You can see there's a deer there and another one there. Quite peaceful over here. And then just for curious minds, I was dumping right here. My husband sort of scratched up the weeds out of this area, and I'm going to be planning to do the cardboard method with some compost in this area. So that will just break down and become more beautiful compost. That's where I was throwing it. There are the empty beds. And then we've got about 2 trays worth of dahlias. And the nice thing is I can let these dry out and I don't have to divide them and store them until they are dry. So it sort of prolongs, or I guess you would say postpones, postpones more of the work. All right, another job done. All right, the next task is, like I said, rhododendrons get a little bit tasty in the winter when the deer are a little bit more desperate. So I've cut out some burlap and I'm going to be zip tying it around just to ensure that it doesn't become a buffet. All right, the last one is this azalea, and unfortunately it's suffering. So we've got one good branch. I'm gonna cut it back and see if it'll come back for me, but we've got to get rid of these unsightly branches first. There we go, we've got just this small little shoot here. We'll see if it comes back. All right, that was one more job done. Let's go on to the next one. All right, and that was another job well done. I mulched all my flower beds in the flower farm with these maple leaves, and my neighbor actually decided to join me. So her and I gathered some sunflower seeds. It looked to be like those were the only things ready or available for me to gather. I did check my honey wart here, but it didn't seem like there was seeds, so I'm gonna have to keep my eye on that to collect those seeds when they are ready. Another job done. And then I moved on to the tender annuals, but these are eucalyptus plants that I'm digging up. They do not overwinter for us here in the cold Canadian winters. So I do dig them up and overwinter them in my basement, and then I'm ready for the coming spring. So I had about, I want to say eight eucalyptus plants that I did dig up, and then later I'm moving on to some pots up by the house. And another item was sprinkling these wildflower seeds that I found. They are a nice mix of rudbeckia, echinacea, wallflower, Indian blanket, coreopsis, just to name a few. Really, really nice drought tolerant varieties. So I'm just sprinkling them just on that roadway edge that I have here. We are in a very, very wet season, so I'm hoping that this will help germinate them. Plus, like I said, they do need that cold stratification process, which is the winter freeze, in order to germinate. So I'm really hopeful that these will become some nice plants coming next spring. All right, I am almost done. I'm just bringing in the last of the tender annuals. So I dug up the eucalyptus like you saw, and now I'm just gonna go grab a couple of the pots that I wanna save for next year. Everything else I think I'm gonna leave, just let the winter kill it. I'm not super sold on any of the other annuals that I could overwinter in the basement. So just the 2 pots that I'll be showing you now that I will save. All right, I have this one, Dracaena in the middle, Dusty Miller, some alyssum, and this beautiful geranium that I started from seed. I've got 2 of these pots, so I'll be bringing these in to the basement. Well, that's all for today. I'm so glad and relieved that I got those last projects done before the snow came. Let me know if you still have things to do in your yard, or maybe you already had snow. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.